Today we have a parable, a story, where Jesus told to illustrate a point. Jesus often talked in parables and stories, very much like Maria, a lot of prodigal that illustrates points rather than, just get straight to the nitty-gritty, which is why our point can take so long sometimes. But I thought of ways to reflect this. I'm sure we've all heard the story of the prodigal son, so I thought I'd tell you another story. There was this whānau that lived in Māngere. A reasonably big whānau. They came from somewhere. They came from a little town. It could be, Pukeputu, could be Rangitikia, but they lived here in Māngere. Just picking on places we love. One of the sons, the youngest son, his name was Tama. Tama played the PlayStation all day long. That's all he did, really. Didn't work much, hung out with his mates occasionally, got on Bebo a lot, just did, what youngish people do. And he wasn't that successful in some ways in society might view it. He got in trouble at school, he got in trouble with the law. He was just your average young Māori male living in Māngere. The father, Rangi, was a respected kaumātua around this area. This is a fictional story, by the way, in case you're trying to put names to faces to people. He was full of traditional knowledge. He'd sit on the local paipai, the local marae. He had connections there through his whakapapa. He would go to church on Sundays. He knew the reo. He was considered an expert. He knew the whakapapa. He was well respected in this local community. And he was always telling stories of home, of growing up in Pukeputu or Rangitikia or wherever he came from, or perhaps Apia, wherever he came from. He was telling stories about home, about growing up, milking cows, or doing whatever he did as a child, and how beautiful it was. He had a wife, but she was a very humble woman. She must have been from Ngāti Rau or Ngāti Kahu. She doesn't get mentioned in the story. Very quiet and humble, those women, as we know. So she doesn't get mentioned in the story. But the father, Rangi, was always encouraging young Tama to be part of the marae, to be who he was, to take up life and its challenges. And the oldest son, his name was Tāne. He was a hard-working young man. He had a family. He lived in the same house. And he worked at a freight company up by the airport there. And he supported his dad. He went on to the marae and he supported his wife and his children and the whole family. The three of them were not very close, the father and the two sons. Tama called his father the old man, and he called his brother bro on a good day. On a bad day, it was much worse. It was like one of those Spates ads, the beer ads? It was all mumbling and eyebrows and not much real expression. Did you have a good day? Shrugging and mumbling and eyebrows, all that sort of thing. That Kiwi culture, that we all seem to get caught up in, especially as males. It's not very Kiwi to express your feelings, so you just mumble, grunt and wander off. And they never talked much, they never ate together, and all his dreams came true when he got the my sky with the 2 rooms. So he got my sky and got sky in his own room. So at meal times, instead of eating together, he'd go into his own room and watch TV and eat KFC or whatever, while the rest of the whānau gathered elsewhere in the house. He lived his own life. They weren't very close. And in some ways there was a lot of anger there too, which they never really talked about amongst the whānau, especially amongst the sons and the father. Tama, though, he wasn't very satisfied with his life, and the father only owned some land back in Pukeputu or Rangitikia or Apia or wherever it was, and he persuaded his father to sell some of it to the local Pākehā farmer who'd always been trying to buy this land. So the father sold, X number of acres, got the cash, because Tama was insisting, had been insisting for a long time, and gave Tama the cash. And Tama took the money and did what all good young Māoris do. He moved to Australia to be with his mates and with his cousins. He was going to work in the mines in Perth, but he got there and there was a recession going on. China didn't want to buy that Australian copper anymore, so there weren't many jobs. And Tama, he'd spent all his money. He'd been to the nightclubs and bought a big Holden HSV and done all those things Māoris want to do in Australia. And he had no money left, and he was pōhara. And all his mates turned out to be not his mates really, and he was very hungry, and he wouldn't qualify for a benefit yet, and things were getting pretty desperate for Tama. So Tama goes to the airport and buys a plane ticket back home. And while he's at the airport, he starts rehearsing this little speech in his head. In the gospel, it's a very eloquent speech. Father, I have sinned. But this is a young Māori man, so of course his speech goes something like this. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. There was a limit of Tama's eloquence, but he was a normal average Māori male. So he hops on the plane and he goes home. And his father hears about this because his cousin works at the airport, brings up his father and says, "Hey, your boy's on the plane, he's coming through." So the father goes to the airport and meets him at the airport. And Tama gets ready with his little speech. "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, yeah. And the father just ignores that, goes up to him and gives him a big hug and says, "Son, you were lost, but now you're found. Welcome home." And the father only organises this big hui on the marae, the local marae. And he gets the local permit from Pukeputo or Rangituki or wherever it is. He gets all this kaiwan, all this oversized power and all these koura and everything, and they have this big hui. And of course there's been lots of talk on that marae about this kaumatua can't control his son. His son is a bit controversial. A lot of go-to-ora going on in that community. "Oh, look at this fellow, he can't go, look, he's a bit controversial." But the father says, "I don't care. My son was lost and now he's found, and we're going to have a celebration in front of the whole community. We're going to bring out all the kaiwan, we're going to have this big feast because it's worth celebrating." Because it wasn't just about necessarily, of course the story's not just about Tama and his father Rangi. It's about the whole whānau, the whole community, about all of us. And they're holding this hui, they got the marae, and Tāne, the older brother, he comes home from work and goes, "Where is everyone? I've wrapped the marae. What are they doing there?" "Well, you know, your father's having this big hui for Tama, he's come home." And he's really angry when he hears this. He's really angry about all that he hears. So he goes along to the marae and he stands at the gate and he refuses to come in. And so the father Rangi, he comes to the gate and says, "What's going on?" And Tāne says, "Look, I've been here to support you all the way through. I've come to the marae, I've driven you up the coast or down the coast or up north or wherever you needed to go. And this fella, you sell funeral for him and he goes to Australia and spends it all on whatever and comes back and you have this big celebration for him. That's not fair. You sold our whenua for this." But Rangi the father was not just wise and compassionate, but he was consistent. And this was his thinking. "Look, honey, this isn't just about your brother, the individual. This has always been about our whānau, our community, about all of us being reconciled, being healed, staying together. And when that happens, we should celebrate. It's not about who got what. It's not about who took off to Australia and spent all the money. It's about us being together, about healing. It's not about our individual mana. It's about our collective mana. That's what this is about. And when that gets fixed, when that's healed, that's what's important." Imagine, and back in the real world, if there was a father rangi. Because we all know there's probably things going on with Rangi and his wife and all that too, that people would talk about. Always are. But imagine if there was a father like Rangi, a kaumatua, who wanted us to be reconciled, who wanted us to come together as whānau. That was his aim in life, and that's what he strived towards. Imagine if the two brothers, Tama and Tāne, could be reconciled and healed. Imagine if young Māori men and all their anger could be healed, could be fixed. And imagine if, as the parable says, imagine if God was that father. Imagine if we have a creator who wants us to be healed, who said it's not about our individual mana and wealth and place, it's about all of us together. That's what's really important. And for me, that's the point of our story today. It's the point of our parable in our story.